Hello, welcome to episode 122 of She Leads Confidently. I'm Karen Barno, your host. This podcast is dedicated to women leaders looking to heal their past so they can step into their most powerful self, figure out what the blocks are, what's holding them back from their amazing greatness and stepping forward. And on that track, we're going to kind of shift gears here a little bit. I am not a fan of vulnerability. And if you know me, you know that to be true. I avoid it like the plague. But I have a book coming out, Rose Bookstore, Sanctuary for Your Soul, right behind me. It'll be out towards the end of September. I'm very excited about it. But because I'm not a fan of vulnerability, I realized this is my third book. I published Find Your Blue Rose, 6 steps or 7 steps to find your blue rose, Shadow Prompts and Journal, and then Blue Rose Bookstore, The Gift of Why, which this is kind of based on. So I don't know whether or not to say this is part 2 or just kind of, I just changed the title and got rid of the other book. So getting back to vulnerability, I have some people out there beta reading it right now. And one of the people called up and said, hey, I got to ask you a question. She goes, is this character based off of you? And instantly I started to shrink. And I won't talk, during the thing I'll talk about Annie, but Annie is the star of the show. She's a very driven CEO of a assisted living community, got to stick with what you know, that had a very tragic childhood, and she deals with a lot of drugs and alcohol. But I said to my friend, well, no, not really. And then I kind of felt like I was being disingenuous, and I said, well, there are pieces. I won't say, a lot of the trauma is a part of mine, but there are pieces that reflect me. And I instantly got so vulnerable. I wanted to say, well, maybe I shouldn't publish the book. Give it back to me. Give back the draft. And I realized this is peeling back bandages on things I don't want to talk about because I'm not, like I said, I don't like vulnerability. So I've decided as I go through this journey of getting ready to launch this book, launching it and having people read it, I figured I'd do a lot more about vulnerability because I think a lot of women shy away from it because we view it as weakness. I think if you're vulnerable, you're terribly weak. I think that, it causes you to play small because you don't want to be vulnerable, so you play small. You don't expose yourself to a lot. You won't open up. You won't say, this is how I feel, because you view it as vulnerability. And if you view it as vulnerability, you're not going to do that. I very seldom will say to somebody, you know what, I am really hurt, or I am really heartbroken. I can't remember the last time. I mean, I'm a cry baby. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big, huge cry baby, but I'm a cry alone person because I feel like it's weakness. And I think I view it as weakness because a lot of women, at least me, I have trauma in my past. And whenever I felt like I was crying, I would get yelled at. I'm going to give you something to really cry about, or I'm going to make, whatever, how parents, how they were back then, I'll spank you harder so you really have something to cry about, or why are you crying? There's nothing to cry about. Why are you being a crybaby? So we learned how to bottle it in. We learned how to keep those emotions at check. So, when I go to funerals, I was at a memorial a couple weeks ago of a very dear friend. And luckily I was by myself and I didn't recognize anybody there. Although I found out later that my good friends were all behind me. We didn't realize that I was the person in front. Anyway, and I was trying so hard not to cry. But I was so devastated that when I got in my car, I cried on the way home. And I realized this is not what a leader does. A leader tells people, this is how I feel. Now, I don't like leaders, and I've worked for leaders that bleed all over the place. They're, oh my God, my life's a train wreck. Oh my God, my boss just yelled at me. Oh my God, my husband. I don't mean that. We owe it to each other to show our emotions. It's not always get on the videos like I do and say, hey, everything is so great. Isn't this amazing? Because it's not always so great. Was our conference great? Absolutely. I got on here and said, oh my God, it was the best ever. Were there spots in it when I was like, holy crap? Absolutely. When I'm trying to feed 500 people in a place that feeds about 400, holy crap. When you have the hotel staff come into you and say, you know what, Karen, you have this so disorganized, so we're going to take over the lines from now on. Holy crap. But I didn't tell anybody. I just, the hotel wants to take over the lines. Oh, it's all great. It's all fantastic. And then I'd go into a different room because we have our, staff room. And I would just sit there and think, oh my God, what am I going to do? I am so over my head. Luckily I have a great team. The hotel's a great hotel, Wickapall Resort and Casino in Arizona. Go visit it. It's a gorgeous hotel. If you like to golf, it's an amazing golf course to stop by. But we have our conference there. We've been there for about 10 years. So, the hotel staff rallied around and said, hey, we got this. Don't worry. But I still couldn't be vulnerable. I still couldn't. On the way I was like, thank you guys so much. I appreciate this. But at no time could I show people, you know what, you guys, this is not working out as I'd hoped. It's working out better. I love the crowds, but I'm in over my head. I'm winging it over here. This is a wing and a prayer. And that's, ladies, where we're letting ourselves down at, because we're not asking for help, because again, it's a sign of weakness. We don't want to show our emotion because again, it's a sign of weakness. We don't want to do anything that will make us look less than how we picture ourselves to be. And it's wrong, because people see who we really are. I have friends that they see who I really am. I may think, oh, I'm really covering up. I've had meetings where I'm really upset about something and everybody's left, and there'll always be that one person that stays behind. They'll be like, are you okay? Oh, sure, I'm great. You're off your game. So I know I'm kind of dragging on here about vulnerability, but I kind of I want you to kind of understand what I mean by it. It is showing who you are. It's showing up in your true, authentic self without the walls, without the barriers, without the bravado. In the book, the part that probably is pretty close to me as we talk about Annie's don't F with me attitude. Don't mess with me. And I've had that attitude for a long time because it's the way you protect yourself. If you mess with me, you're going to get burned. If you play with fire, you're going to get burned. It's how you protect yourself. It doesn't mean that I'm really that person, because I'm really not. But it's the way, it's to keep that bubble around me, to keep myself safe. And this is stuff, I don't like to talk about. And if you followed me for a long time, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, I tried to do a 21-day of vulnerability. I did one day, I was like, nope, nope, we're not doing this. But if I want to inspire women, if I want to encourage women to be everything you can be, to be your most powerful, authentic self, then I have to be. And so I have to figure out how to become vulnerable. I think some people, they learn that they just know how to be vulnerable. I don't know how to be vulnerable because I ran away from that emotion for so long. I don't know how to step into it other than, because again, I said I'm a big crybaby. Other than that, and even then, I don't like to be vulnerable in front of people. And I don't know how I'm going to handle my book because, when I tell people I've written 2 books, they're like, really? I didn't know that, because you had to market it. And I didn't market the books because, again, it's vulnerability. In fact, I'll have to have it behind me next time. I said, 7 Steps to Find Your Blue Rose. It did okay. It wasn't a bestseller, but it did okay, considering it was all word of mouth. Because every time somebody would come in and say, hey, I bought your book, I'd be like, oh. Because if you have trauma or any of that in your background, you're also worried about what other people think. And I used to be up until recently, and recently, I was in the past probably a couple of months, I used to be a raging people pleaser. I used to care deeply on what people thought about me. Even people I didn't know and even people I don't know. Even, people that exist out in my ecosystem, but we're not besties. We know each other at a conference. Hey, how are you? But I spent years because of, childhood. What was drilled into me as a child is, act properly, sit properly, seen but don't be heard. Always have your best manners. Yes, sir. No, sir. If somebody wants something, jump up and get it. I was raised that way. Because that was just how, my dad did a lot of entertaining, and that's how we were raised as children. So I've carried that on to where I really deeply cared what people thought. And actually, I could probably tell you about 2 years ago, I was sitting in a meeting with somebody, and they told me something about myself, and I walked out of the meeting. I went home. It was just the person and I. I went home, and I thought, how dare you? How dare you judge me? And that was the first time I ever had that thought. And I probably should have jumped on here and said, you know what, you guys, I just had a thought that when somebody judges you, tell them, F off. And if they're a boss or if there's something you can't, you just got to look at them and say, thank you. That's it. Just thank you. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to say, well, this is why. You don't need to go back 2 days later and say, hey, well, this is why. Just thank you. Because other people's opinion of you don't matter. We're raised as women for it to matter. I mean, look at the elections. I don't care if you vote Republican or Democrat. I could care less. But you had Hillary Clinton running for election, and they always did commercials about her laugh. What the hell? Now Kamala Harris is running, and they're doing commercials about her laugh. Do you ever see them do commercials about men's laughs? No. Do you see them do commercials about Trump when he's dancing, that goofy way he dances? No. But they do it to women to make us look weak, to make fun of us. And we watch that on TV, and our girls watch that on TV. Our little girls watch it. And they think, oh, laughing's bad. Oh, I better not be like that. We're doing it to ourselves. We need to say, you know what, knock that shit off. But we won't because we're vulnerable and we care what other people think. Too much. And we're too much of people pleasers. So I just got to commit to myself to get on here more and more and talk about this, because it touches my soul. I said, this book is 8 years in process. I've written it, rewritten it. Like I said, it's out beta testing. I called the first person who got the beta test and said, hey, where are you at? And she told me a page. I said, great, don't read the last 3 chapters because I changed it. I changed it. I'm much happier with it. So I keep making tweaks with it. But I know that people are going to read the book, and I know they're going to judge the book, because that's just what we do as human beings. I mean, I'll read books and I'll be like, oh, that book, that sucked. Oh, that was a good book, or, here, read this book. And then I'm going to have people that call up and say, I think this part here didn't make sense, or I found a typo. Or as a former people pleaser, as a former person that really cared deeply what people I didn't even know thought about me, those days are over. I've worked through it, and I really want to help you learn how to work through it. And that's the purpose of these vulnerable videos. I want to talk to you about it. I want you to understand that other people's opinions are just reflecting back what they think about themselves. I mean, when they say to me that there's a typo, they're just reflecting back to me about they feel like they made a mistake. When I talk about, women's issues or women, and people get mad at me, I realize that they're not secure enough in themselves to talk about these issues. They're not ready to, or they're too, narrow-minded, whatever it is. So always remember, when people don't agree with you, all they're doing is showing you who they really are. And as somebody, like me who likes to inspire and coach women, sometimes I'll look at them and I'll just take their hand and say, it's okay. And some won't even get it. They'll be like, of course it's okay. And then later they'll come back and say, you're right. It is okay. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to do whatever you think, however you want to think. But you don't need to rant and rage on other people. And too many women embrace that and allow that. How many of you guys have your bosses that yell at you for no reason? Or they yell at you and you brace and you think, oh my God, the worst is going to happen. We can't let that happen. So moving forward, I'm going to talk a lot more about vulnerability, about, coming out with my book. You'll be able to follow this book's journey. I'll let you know how the beta testing goes. I've only had one comment, and that was the one I talked about earlier that almost made me pull back all the beta tests and say, you know what, maybe I'm not ready to publish this book. Maybe I need to work on it. 8 years hasn't been enough. Maybe I need to work on it some more. So I hope this helps you guys. Please, if you have comments, put it in the comments below. If you're watching this on Apple Podcasts, please give me a like and a subscribe. If you're on YouTube, same thing, give me a like and a subscribe. If you follow me on TikTok, same thing. Facebook, same thing. I just want to help you step in and become your greatest friend, your greatest ally, and I want to help you find your blue rose. Have a great day, y'all, and here's to you finding your blue rose.